Hey guys, my name is Ryan and welcome to Overwatch Central. Today we're sitting down with Moth and Nevix, who of course were part of the San Francisco Shock, the ones that won the Overwatch League, and I wanted to sit down with them and talk frankly about the meta, if it was as bad as people made it out to be, and if the PTR changes were going to make any difference at all. You can find Nevix and Moth's details in the description below, but let's get started.
It's sort of got to that point where now it's just really everybody's playing Sigma. Like, why is that the case? Why is it sort of over time that you've realised that, like, Diva maybe not the better option here, Sigma seems to be the go-to?
As soon as Sigma came out, he was like, people understood he was very like overpowered, I guess, compared to like Diva, and he really fit the meta well with Ursa. Because like the double shield is just very strong, very annoying for any like DPS to deal with, and then the 2-2-2 meta, so you had to have like two tanks. So it just kind of became natural that you played Sigma.
Yeah. And I mean, like, we'll talk about the PTR a bit later on, but there's definitely that theme of like, hey guys, play over tanks. Like, Winston is still a thing, Reinhardt's still a thing. Like, how free in a sense of like, would you not recommend anybody to sort of play stuff like Winston and Reinhardt? Because you play those heroes too, like in regards to basically all the heroes, you played a lot of them, like in competitive at least. Can you still play those heroes, or would you feel that like Orisa Sigma is just so far above everything else that you just wouldn't recommend it to anyone?
If you play the highest level, like GM or above, I would recommend playing the meta as much as possible. But I mean, you always want to know like more heroes, of course. Like it helps you long term. But I mean, as the meta changes, you're gonna have to change your style, like change the hero picks for yourself and learn different heroes. Yeah, so I mean, if you don't play Sigma now, you're kind of missing out, like, because then you don't have like your full potential.
Definitely recommend it. When it comes to supports, Moth, it's one of those areas where it seems to be a much bigger thing. Like, support duos seem to be really important. Like, Moira was always run with Lucio. Like, Baptiste seems to be really good with Zenyatta. And why was it that every single sort of map type, I don't know if it was more specific to you or other teams, but like, you ran Moira Lucio on Control because that makes sense. While like 2CP, you saw sort of like Merciana. So why was Merciana played then? And why was Baptiste then played on like moving payload maps, I guess?
Well, the support duo defines a lot how your team takes fights. So if you're playing Lucio Moira, that means like you really want to play aggressive and like push past the enemy shields. This meta, Orisa Sigma is really dominant. So if you're playing Lucio Moira, it's to get up in the enemy's face. But if you're playing a different support duo, if you're playing something like Baptiste Zen, Baptiste Mercy, Baptiste Ana, that means you want to take a slower approach to the game. You want to like burn through the shields. You don't want to take a fight right away. You want to like play the high ground, play angles, and just poke the opponent.
So that's why like Zen, Baptiste started off being relatively popular by yourself and stuff, but then the more the time has gone on, you've sort of gone, we can't really play that anymore because we're not playing to break shields when you're running Doomfist and stuff. Like, the whole idea, I suppose, shifts. Is that right, would you say?
Yeah, that's exactly it. In Stage 4, the dominant tank duos were like Ursa Hog and Ursa Diva. So you have your 900 HP shield on like a 8 or 9 second cooldown, which means Zen Baptiste is really good because they can add a lot of shield pressure, break the shield, and start the fight. But if you have Ursa and Sigma, then that shield pressure doesn't really matter. There's too many shields, so Lucio Moira is good because you just have to go past them anyway.
In regards to like the other options, like Mercy had a change on the PTR, which we'll get to, but does it generally feel that you can't really play anything else other than those two supports, or is it just more optimal as opposed to viable?
Well, right now it's sort of map dependent. Lucio Moira is really dominant on a lot of maps, but there are some maps where you can play other comps. So yeah, it's map dependent, but it'll probably change with next patch. We'll see.
Like, I think one of the things that I noticed about that whole playstyle, especially with like Lucio Moira being used, is when you have a tank like Orisa, Stage 4, it was much slower in general playstyle, right? Now you almost play it like goats in terms of like tempo and how aggressive you are. Like, was that kind of a very conscious thing, or was that just perhaps like by chance that Goat's comp that was really strong is now being played very similar to what you're running now?
Yeah, it's definitely a result of Sigma being introduced, just because with the high shields you can't do anything except push past the shields on most maps. So when Goats was removed, then there was only like one shield hero that was really strong, it was Orisa, which meant you could play slow and break the shield, but now you have to go past the shields. There's too many shields to work around.
That's why Doomfist, Reaper sort of going in. In regards to the PTR patch, I think it'd be rude to sort of assume that you know like everything that's in there, but in regards to, I guess, support first and then tanks, or DPS even, whatever sort of affects your role the most. What stood out to you, I suppose, as soon as you saw those patch notes?
The Lucio changes will probably make him even more dominant. I think it's his amp is going from like 50% to 60% or something like that, so it's almost back to where it was at the beginning of the season. That'll definitely make like aggressive team compositions more popular.
I think that'll sort of push, like, I guess that's more of a question for you, but like Reinhardt, Zarya, do you think that those changes might push them a little bit more, or is it still like Orisa, Sigma being as strong as they are, like it's not going to happen?
Yeah, that'll depend on the tank changes. Definitely, like, Ryan is going to be more stronger if Lucio is more stronger, but I think Ursa and Sigma are too dominant for that to make a difference.
Agree?
Yeah, I think I agree. I mean, the Sigma nerf is pretty... Well, it's not huge, but it's, like, notable.
Yeah.
I don't know if it will change anything, honestly, but we'll have to see. The Winston buff is interesting. I don't know how much that's going to impact the game either. Like, if that's going to make him really good or not. But I still feel like Orisa Sigma is just as strong as tanks, even with the changes.
Just as strong as they were before, basically.
Yeah.
Do you think that was more of a conscious thing? Like, obviously, you're not Jeff Kaplan, you're not Blizzard, you don't know for certain, but I personally feel like those changes are unnoticeable enough that it might incentivize you to want to play more than what's played currently. Like, as a tank especially, if it's anything that's like, you know, give you a good example to play Winston more, especially if you're on Watchpoint Gibraltar, you might... Well, he got buffed recently, why not? And then everybody else might start picking Tracer, who was buffed and whatever. Do you feel like that was something conscious that Blizzard should have done? And
I think,
do you like it?
I think all the changes was like in the right direction. And I like that they don't like just kill the OP heroes, which some games do. They use like, oh, this hero is being played all the time. Let's just nerf him so you can't play him anymore. At least they're like trying to find a balance. We make every hero viable. But yeah, it's going to take some time to know if this actually changed anything.
Is that sort of similar with supports then? You think that they're giving you a little bit more option because it's not as obvious? I think for tanks it's like, yep, they're going to bring like Orisa Sigma down. Supports, like, they buffed Lucio's back to where he was, and Lucio's already pretty good. They changed Mercy. Like, is there anything... Baptiste got nerfed a little bit. Like, is it similar, do you think? Gives you a bit more room to breathe?
Yeah, I mean, I think supports are in a pretty good place. There's still a lot of flexibility, like, compared to tanks right now, whereas you have to play, like, Ursa Sigma in every comp on every map. There's a little bit of flexibility with supports, so they didn't have to make as big of iterations, I think, so... we'll see how it works out. It's hard to tell right now, though.
Because GOATS was like, nobody played anything else unless you're like Chengdu Hunters, where you're just off on your own and do whatever you want anyway. But like, I think people are comparing it in a similar sense because it's like, this is what you have to play. In like a similar like Moth meta with Mercy, like you have to play Mercy. Is it as bad as it was with GOATS, where it was sort of that end game kind of meta sort of thing?
I don't think this is as like you have to play the same heroes. I think there's more options in this meta than GOATS, for sure.
Same with you? Well, I guess for supports, it's you get a bit more leeway than tanks.
Yeah, I enjoy this more than GOATS because for GOATS, even though GOATS was a lot of fun to play Lucio on, but I only got to play Lucio and I prefer to flex my hero pool a little bit. So this meta, I get to play like Lucio and Baptiste and Mercy and like sometimes Honor and Moira. So for me, I get to show off my flexibility more, so I enjoy it.
You both play a lot of competitive as well, especially you. Like, what kind of, like, especially now in this meta, in this playstyle, with you both sort of being so prolific in your roles, what kind of advice would you give for somebody that wants to play main support or wants to just play anything at this point, I suppose? Like, especially now where role queues sort of slowed down the game and you have to be a bit more precise and intentional. Like, I am going to play support today, I'm going to do this. Like, what sort of advice would you have for people that want to get better?
For main support, you can improve a lot in ranked if you improve your understanding of the game and make a lot of calls, like do ult tracking and like make plans for your team. Stuff like that can be really helpful, especially if you're playing Lucio. Like, he's less mechanical skill than some of the other roles, so you can provide a lot more like calls to your team, and you could improve your rank that way.
You kind of have to do comms as a Lucio, do you think? Like, you can't really go silent, because I don't like to talk anyway, so I always feel like I'm a bit of a detriment to my team if I'm playing Lucio and not saying anything.
Well, if you're very good at Lucio, you can get away with not calling, but calling a lot is an easy way to improve your skill.
And for, like, off tanks, main tanks, whatever, like, what, especially going into queuing as a tank, you get an instant queue, like, what would you do to try and make your experience as good as possible, but I guess as easy as possible as well?
Just try to work with your team and play the best heroes. Just try as hard as possible.
I wonder who that is.
Yeah. And like now you can't just, because some people would like, if they felt like the team was struggling, they would just go, oh, I'm gonna go Widow and carry my team. But since you can't do that not right now, I think you have to focus more on yourself and like improve instead of like just trying to change everything.
Finally, where can people see more of you, like your Twitters and Twitches if you stream, and anything that you want to say to like Shock fans or Vancouver fans, I suppose at this point, anything you want to sort of end on?
Thanks so much for supporting us all season long. We'll do our best in the finals. You can follow me twitter.com/moth_OW. Same Twitch, moth_OW. I don't stream a lot right now, but I think I'm going to start in the off season, so maybe you'll see me there.
A lot more free time, I guess, as well. Like, what about you?
Well, thank you guys for supporting us. You can follow me on Twitter, Twitter/Nevix_OW. I don't really stream that often, but Nevix, twitch.com/Nevix OW.